Today, we are going to be working on these super fun, very easy to make watercolor cards. All you'll need are some basic tools, and we hope that you'll craft along with us. My name is Maddie with Spectrum Art Creations, and I'm so glad that you're here. So if you're a beginner like I am, who does not ever do watercoloring, I will highly encourage you to play today. Now Madison, of course, who is my daughter, she usually crafts along with us, but she decided not to do this today. What are you doing instead?
Backgrounds.
You are doing some backgrounds. What are you using?
They're called granite gloss sprays.
She has been playing with gloss sprays. Look at that yumminess. Beautiful, Madison. All right, without much further ado, we are going to, just get right into crafting. The first thing we're going to do is stamp out our images. To do this, I am using a stamping platform, which allows me to be able to stamp the same image over and over again without it actually moving. So in case there are any areas that perhaps didn't stamp so well, I can definitely make sure I get a good print. For my first print, I'm going to be using Stays On permanent ink, which is perfect for when you're using watercolor so the ink will not run. It is permanent. I'm also going to be using my magic stamping tool, which is a fabulous tool, allows you to actually create a firm press and impression on your platform without hurting your hands. Our second print is also Stays On, but I am using brown just to see how it looked. The third impression will be an embossed impression, and so I'm using the anti-static pouch, which helps you create a crisper, cleaner image when you're actually embossing or using embossing powders. Now throughout this video, you're going to see me use a lot of different inks, like the embossing powders or the embossing pad here, also archival pads like I just used, stamping platforms, the magic stamping tool right here. There are going to be all kinds of different things that I'll be using, and I will be sure to link those down below in the description box so you can easily access them from our online store. Also, I'll try and place cards throughout the video that will link you to our stores as well. I've decided to use a white embossing powder, and you'll see once I bring it up how clean and crisp the image is. And again, that anti-static pouch really helps. If there are any little tiny bits here and there, you can just use a little brush and just clean up any little remnants that might still be there before you actually heat emboss. As I heat emboss, you'll notice that I actually go front and back. And the reason for this is because heat passing through your paper causes it to actually warp. By actually balancing your heat from the front and the back, this will prevent warping on your paper. Especially in this case, I am using plain old cardstock. It is not gessoed, it is not prepped, it is not anything. It's just plain cardstock rather than using watercolors or watercolor paper, which of course would be a much better grade, will have more pulp, will be thicker. But since I wanted to, again, make sure that we use what we have at hand, you'll see how there's minimal warping by using that trick. For this impression, I've decided to actually use gold embossing powder. Again, just playing with what we have. I did a pink one, I did a white one, and now I'm doing a gold one just to see how different colors will play. Now, the thing that we're going to be working on is we are going to be making this kind of a series. So I will come back and do a different technique on a gold one, come back and do a different technique on the ones that I stamped with the archival inks, and just play with different mediums. The goal is to be able to see how many different finishes or looks we can actually get out of one stamp, and maybe how many different projects too. So we'll see if we take the next maybe 2 or 3 videos and turn this into a mini series to work on how many different ways can we actually work with one stamp, plus playing with the tools that we already have in our stash, or maybe getting possibilities and ideas for ones that we want to add to our stash. And now the fun begins. This is the time when you just relax, sit back, and watercolor. Break out your ink pads, your gelatos, your distress crayons, your watercolors, or your pen pastels if you have them, and just sit back and just relax and enjoy the process. This is going to be fun. This is actually a card that I saw, I believe it was on Pinterest, and I was inspired to actually copy it, of course, and give it my own twist. Again, I'm not a watercolor expert, but again, you don't need to be. This is about making it your time, making it a place where you can actually relax and just take deep breaths, slow breaths, and just sit back and enjoy the process and let the colors do what they will. You will notice that this entire segment of the video is unclipped. I wanted to leave it this way on purpose for 2 reasons. Number 1, I wanted us to actually enjoy the process together. Number 2, I also wanted you to be able to see how I just go about adding more water, layering colors, playing within the different hues and that spectrum of color, using different pads. Use what you have, like I mentioned, at hand. Use your gelatos, the pads that you have. That's why I didn't even give you specific names of the pads that I was using, because I want to encourage you to use what you have. Of course, if you do not have any of these pads or tools, I will be putting the links down below for you to be able to purchase them as well from our online store. And if you have any questions, any specific questions, always feel free to ask. You will notice that I also use a page to mop up any additional ink, because again, nothing goes to waste. And as you can see, our flowers as well as our leaves and our stems are starting to take shape by adding those darker colors and towards the centers and where the folds are, and then lighter colors towards the tips. We have been able to create some shading and shadows, thus giving them a more dimensional look. Now, oxides also are a very wise choice if you're a beginner for watercoloring, because they actually layer very well and do not create mud. So if you actually do not like a color that you've used, that happened to me, you saw with the blues, I actually brought in some additional blues. You can always say, well, that was a little too dark, maybe I need to lighten it, or maybe I need more of an aqua than that sky blue. You can always do that with oxides by being able to layer them up. Our little mop-up page just keeps getting better and better. As you can see, nothing goes to waste. We've added Nuvo dimensional vintage drops in order to give the center of those petals some dimension and some depth as well. For the base, I'll be using a plain brown cardstock paper and my Ergo Dress My Craft bone folder. Can't say enough about that tool. Absolutely love it. Has been a blessing to my hands for sure. Next, we're going to distress all of our pieces. The card fronts, the card base itself, as well as some additional pieces that I have cut out of regular scrapbooking paper. I've cut out some corners and then some mats for the front and the back of the card, as well as some additional white cardstock, which I'll be distressing for the inside of the card as well. That way, we can write a sentiment or maybe add a photo and a sentiment, a poem. So we'll have room to actually journal in there as well if we'd like to add it onto a journal or a junk journal or some kind of a gift that we are giving to someone. Next, we want to work on our envelope. We don't want to leave it plain, right? Of course not. Now, we could do quite a few techniques on this. We could use some 3D paints. We could do some more embossing. We could decoupage a napkin. We could just use more watercolor paints. Instead, what I've decided to do is to use a stencil and the same inks so that it kind of all blends together and looks like one cohesive set. And now it's time to bring it all together by adhering all of our pieces. And for some final fun touches, we're going to be using our Stamperia Aquacolor Leather. Magnificent spray bottle and color, which of course we will be covering throughout various videos, but we also talk and teach a lot about the aqua colors in our classes, so make sure that if you get a chance you join our online classes. And the other favorite tool that I have that I'm using here is my Tim Holtz splatter brush. I used to make huge messes, I'm sure you guys can relate, and I would get splatters everywhere, including my monitor, my walls. I would need a splat box, and that tool just keeps it all reined in and the splatters precisely placed where it is that you would like to spray them. And here is our final fun card. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you have crafted along. If you found the video useful or enjoyable, please make sure that you give us a thumbs up.
Bye.
Please do subscribe to the channel. Madison says bye. And I'd also like to encourage you to please leave a comment. It actually does help the channel to grow to do all three things: the thumbs up, the comments, and the subscription. You guys have a wonderful crafting day. Many blessings.